I remember when I was like a teenager, I used to be kind of obsessed with the idea that we only get to live one life. Like, you know how there are so many kind of parallel universes, and it's like you could do this, you could do that. And that used to feel so tragic to me. But now I'm kind of just like, well, I'm going to pack in as much as I can on this single strand because that's all you can do, you know?
Welcome back to the Time Freedom Podcast, where you can learn how to rethink your work and your money to create a life you love right now. Join us for insights to help you find meaningful freedom so you can choose how and when and with whom you work for as long as you want. Here are your hosts, me, Brian Harriott, and Kirby Dennison. Today we welcome Ruby Ryba. Ruby is a former high school math teacher turned screen time strategist, and she's the author of the book, How to Stop Scrolling, that comes out on March 30th. Ruby helps people reclaim their time, their attention, and their sense of self in a tech-heavy world. Through relatable stories and research-backed strategies, she guides readers to examine not just how they use their phones, but why. Her work blends empathy, humor, and practicality to help people find adjustments and strategies that work for their goals. Welcome to the Time Freedom Podcast. Today we have Ruby Ryba.
Thanks so much for having me today, Brian and Kirby.
Yes. And so we met, I think, online, like people meet these days. I think I first ran across you at one of AJ Harper's writing sprint marathons.
I think you're right.
And then I joined the Write Useful Books community, and you're actually quite active in there. Are you still involved in that community?
I am. Yeah, I'm very active with the Useful Books community. I host a weekly writing circle too, so you're welcome to join.
How did you find out about that? I'm curious.
Someone recommended the book, Write Useful Books, for me, and then I think I was just looking into it, and then I stumbled across the community. How about you?
Cool. Well, I heard about it because I read AJ's book, Write a Must Read, and in the book, she refers to Write Useful Books.
Does she
and
really?
So I went and I checked it out. Yeah.
I read her book second. I read Write Useful Books first. I was part of the Useful Books community. And then when I was struggling with an outline, I went to her book. And then I found out about her community. Yeah. Yeah.
And so the name of your book is How to Stop Scrolling, and we'll talk all about that. But what we usually like to do first is ask kind of a unconventional question just to get the, thoughts flowing. And that is what is something that few people know about you? And once you answer, Kirby will go and I'll go as well, so we can kind of share
Very
that
few
way.
people know that I used to be a relatively serious rock climber.
Oh, interesting.
It's random.
I know another Adela McAllowitz, who is Mike McAllowitz's daughter, happens to also be an avid rock climber.
Wow.
And she actually had a terrible fall and hurt her ankle. You didn't have any injuries?
I did not.
Like
my mother was very against outdoor climbing because I did this when I was growing up. So I only climbed in a gym. Yeah. And I haven't done a ton of it as an adult. I've been getting back into it a little bit, but I was also a dancer when I was younger. So that gave me the strength and flexibility to be a pretty good climber compared to now. I'll go over there and I'll be like, wait, I used to be able to do something much more challenging than this.
Let me tell you, it only gets worse.
I know.
As you get older.
We were just talking about that.
Yeah, although it started poorly for me even as well. Did you have the presidential fitness in gym class when you were like growing up? That was like maybe an older thing. Well, you had to do these things like how many pull-ups could you do? And I could only ever do like a half a pull-up.
Oh, and you had to run a mile and there were all these different.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I kind of remember
the
that.
sit and reach. Yeah. Well, that's really cool. Kirby, how about you? What a few people know about you?
Unless you've been to my house, you don't know this. And I have a ridiculous amount of blankets. Like I always have a blanket. Yep. I always have one like on my lap or close to me. Every time I go on a car trip, even if it's a short trip, I like take a blanket with me. I'm like a blanket baby. And I've created 3 monsters with them.
Do you have like 5 blankets on your bed that you sleep with?
Probably more than that.
Wow.
Oh my God.
Wow.
Okay. That's pretty cool. The thing that few people know about me, although Kirby, you know this, and I also mentioned this in the book, is that my wife and I keep score in our relationship. And yes. And we have been doing this for over 25 years because that's how long we've been married. And the score is 1,298 to 8 to me.
You're not getting any numbers very fast, Brian.
That's really not a lie because, she oftentimes is, you come back later and you decide, who had the right information, and it is 95% 5% of the time her. So I just usually just leave it at that. One time, actually, so this is a lead in. So one of the reasons I'm excited to talk to you, Ruby, is because you are a former teacher. I'm a former teacher.
I didn't know that, until you told me.
Yeah, just a quick note. So I taught with Teach for America in New Orleans back in 2002. Apparently, you know how like students can catch your mannerisms and then like tell them back to you. At the end of the year, they started saying, would you like to go home and check with the brains behind the operation if they ever asked me a question that I wasn't sure about? Because I must have mentioned that like multiple times.
That's really
do you
funny.
want to go home and check with Claire? Yeah. So tell me about tell us just a little bit about who you are personally, professionally. I'm definitely interested in the teaching background and kind of how you've transitioned to authorship and coaching and things like that.
Yeah, so I went into teaching high school right out of college. I grew up tutoring. Some kids, when you're looking for extra cash in high school, that's what I ended up doing. I also did a lot of volunteer work with teaching, actually. So just teaching and tutoring is something that I have been doing for a long time. And then when I realized, I can just keep doing this as my job, that's what I did. I stopped teaching kind of suddenly due to COVID. 2020 is when COVID hit, and it's also when I had my first child. And it also felt, though, like a good time to pivot because although I loved teaching, I felt like I wanted more reach. And speaking of time freedom, once I stepped away from teaching, I really experientially understood how little time freedom you have as a teacher. Sure, you get summers and school breaks off, but you're really expected to work within the confines of the school calendar. I mean, I remember my first year of teaching was when I got married. And when I asked my principal for 3 days off in April, she said, most teachers get married in the summer. And I was like, okay.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. That's crazy.
So I continued a little bit of college consulting and tutoring, which I keep trying to retire from. I always have like one student, and then I just finished with one student. And then I literally got a text from a parent yesterday, and I really love her. So we'll see. I think writing a useful book marries helping and teaching people with what was missing a little bit for me, which was to create something. I think when I'm teaching, I'm supporting others in their creative endeavors, but I also wanted to work on something. So I think that's what really resonates with me in terms of authorship and in terms of the relatively flexible lifestyle it can give me so that I can also be present with my kids.
That's pretty cool. I just only taught for 1 year. I think the Teach for America commitment is supposed to be 2 years, but we had to move away because my wife got into grad school. But I just recall that first year. I mean, tell me if it would have gotten easier.
It would have gotten easier. I cried.
Yeah, like you make it through the day and you're like, oh gosh, I'm done. And then you're like, oh my God, I got a plan tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you're working overnight, and then it's like that way. And I actually remember the weekends, I would just do everything that I could to try to get ahead.
Yeah.
And that is the opposite of time freedom.
Yeah, no, it was really hard. And I mean, I also think that once you start teaching for a few years, and I'm sure that this really starts to compound, you start teaching the same classes year after year. And then you also start to be able to read your audience and you know what works with kids, what doesn't. It's kind of like the beta reading of useful books, right? It's like you teach it with one class, and if it works, I mean, it was interesting because I used to teach 4 sections of Algebra 2 and AP Stats my last couple of years of teaching. And so I would kind of be tweaking that algebra lesson as the day went on because I'd realize, this works, this doesn't work. So I always felt bad for my first period class because I felt like they got kind of like the roughest version of it. But luckily they were a small class. There was only 13 of them. So, they got other things in return.
So it's interesting. I've only ever I'm sure there are many people like this, but my wife is very mathematically minded and gifted and creatively and kind of on the writing side. It sounds like you're in a similar situation, right? Because you've taught math and now you're writing a book. Have you brought the analytics to the book writing process, or is that like tell me about that a little bit?
A little bit. I mean, I do, reference statistics. I have a couple charts, but nothing crazy because I really think the point of my book is to try to make it as approachable as possible. I think there are a lot of more heavy texts on the subject, and I'm trying to write something that's accessible.
Yeah, I'm also quite analytically minded, and maybe it's just like the useful books process, which is like you need to be structured about how you go through it and get specific feedback to make the creative work better. Interesting. So let's get back a little bit to your kind of to time freedom. Have you, since learning of this subject and whatnot, I mean, which like for me has only been several years, have you always thought about something like this, or is this something that's come about more recently. And part of the question is, I found in general that sometimes the younger generations, this is of more value to, or you're more aware of it earlier than my Gen X or older generations.
I think you're right. I think there's a little bit to do with the generational differences. I remember you mentioned in your book how if you are working a job that you hate just all the way until you retire, that's really not what you should be doing. And I definitely know more people in older generations that do that than younger. However, I also think there is a bit of a personality aspect to seeking out freedom at all. And to that, I definitely credit my husband because he's very entrepreneurial. I was very like, do the thing in the very, in the way, in the order that it says in the book that I bought because I referenced the other book that told me to read, you know what I mean? And he's like,
Yes.
he doesn't really, I'm like, but what do you do when you don't know what to do? Because I like go to the library. He's like, I look within. And I'm like, that sounds silly to me. He's like, I look within and sometimes Google, but yeah, so I think his personality really opened my eyes up to just freedom in general. There's time freedom, but there's so many different types of freedom. And I think that we often are really binding ourselves to scripts that we don't realize that we're reading off of. So I definitely credit him to that. And it still took me time and still takes me time. I think when you are going against the grain and you're doing things a little bit differently, there's a lot of space for doubt to creep in. So I give him a lot of credit to that, but it is something that I completely, that completely resonates with me. And I think freedom also really complements and works with autonomy, right? And making our own choices and not living our life on autopilot. And I think that's really related to why I'm so passionate about getting people off of their phones, because I have no problem with someone being on their phone if they chose to do that, if they need to do that because they need to pay for parking or call a friend or whatever. But what really crushes me is when someone is on their phone for hours and it's actually not really of their own volition or choice, so that in some ways that's a restriction and a lack of freedom in and of itself that I am trying to open people's eyes to.
Yeah, I hate that. I remember one time I was taking an airport shuttle and I just looked around and every single person had their head down on that phone. It was just like, oh my God, this is so odd.
Yeah, I often want to do like a photo series on this. Like there are so many
Yeah.
instances where I'm just like, this is insane. There's so much
Yeah.
opportunity for life.
I want to just go back to your husband's influence on you. I feel like we are kindred spirits in a way, and because I'm glad you discovered it early, because I also was, my wife describes me as just put moving forward with the blinders on, like this is what you're supposed to do. So you do it. And often she'll say, why are you doing that? And I'll be like, well, you're supposed to.
Yes.
And then she's like, well, I think you should like, just think about it a little bit.
hmm
And then before you know, because even writing a book, she wanted to write a book. So I'm like, okay, she wants to write a book. I will go research how to write a book. And I was looking this up for her. And then I'm like, wait a second, this sounds kind of fun myself. And then I ended up doing it.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I feel like we owe it to people in our lives who can give us a different perspective
Definitely.
on things, which is pretty cool. So tell me a little bit more about the entrepreneurial nature. Like what does he do? Like how more specifically even has that influenced you? I think that would be an interesting string to pull on.
Sure. So he works in finance and he kind of started out the way that a lot of people do. He started working at Goldman Sachs. And then after 2 years, he was like, okay, I'm not climbing that ladder. Like I'm out of here. And he left to work at a hedge fund in Connecticut. And that was his third year out of school, but I was still a senior in college and we met in college in Manhattan. And so at that time, we actually moved to Connecticut and I was taking a commuter train into Manhattan and he was working. And I mean, I already think that that's pretty off the path, where like, it's like I moved in with my boyfriend from college, but I'm living in a different state, commuting to my 8:40 a.m. statistics class that I have to take to graduate, And then he quit that because he was like, okay, I'm just going to start my own thing. And I remember when he started his own thing, there was a time that for a few months we moved into his parents' house because we wanted to get onto a different rent cycle. Because in New York, everyone starts renting in June. And we were like, we're geniuses. We're going to start renting in November and then we're going to have cheaper rent. and their house happened to be close to the school that I was teaching at. So we were like, let's do that. And then we would meet people at parties and they'd be like, to him, they'd be like, wait, so you're like unemployed, right? And we're like, no, like, where'd you, like, we're starting our own thing, like we really, no one understood what he was doing, and he just had to keep going. And I remember when he was taking care of people's money, he was only, you eat what you kill. And so he had practically no base salary. And so just to be safe, he was tutoring chess on the side, like we just had like a very interesting lifestyle and hustle. And then, after COVID, we said, well, should we move to the burbs in Connecticut like everyone else? Maybe. And then we were like, well, we could actually live anywhere. So we looked at the map of the US, and that's how we ended up in Florida. And we lived in Miami, we lived in Boca, we lived in Palm Beach. Like
Wow.
we really just we try things out. And I'm so grateful for that, because when I look back a year or 2 years or 5 years, we've really tried a lot of things. And I remember when I was like a teenager, I used to be kind of obsessed with the idea that we only get to live one life. Like, how there are so many kind of parallel universes, and it's like, you could do this, you could do that. And that used to feel so tragic to me. But now I'm kind of just like, well, I'm going to pack in as much as I can on this single strand, because that's all you can do. And it's sometimes exhausting, but wouldn't change it.
I think that's really cool. One of the things I always look back on and I wish I would have done is taken some time either after high school or after college and like gone to Europe and bummed around and done that kind of thing. And again, I was on the path, you graduate and then you go and you get a job and you start putting money in your 401k and you do it. And fortunately, you can still do that now. I'm glad I recognized it while I'm still able. Like I had some lower back issues this morning when I woke up. But other than that, as long as I don't have to sleep in a hostel, I'll be able to do it. But I just have the utmost respect for people that kind of recognize that early and then just do it, which I think is great.
I mean, to be fair, like I missed out on that a little bit too, because I feel like we went right to kind of grinding, even though it was in maybe a different way. But I do sort of think that it kind of all evens out. Like, I feel like if you do the traveling first, then you have to start contributing to that 401k seriously later. Or if you start with the 401k, then maybe it yields an opportunity later in life. So I do kind of think it all kind of shakes out, or I try to tell myself that at least. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so if we could go here, this is kind of interesting to me because the book as it's written, my book on time freedom is really written for the 40-year-old. It's kind of someone that's done some saving. They definitely have more to go to retire, but it's something that they can leverage. And, they have skills, they have a network. A lot of, I have little call outs in the book for people that are starting out, but they're just small call outs. I've been thinking a lot more and kind of toying with the idea of like a prequel to the book, which is more for people coming out of school who instinctually know they want to do things a little differently, move around, but also maybe have their parents or other mentors saying, you got to put in your time, you got to do this thing. Like, I feel like there is a way. I need to do a lot more work on this and talk to people like you and others to figure out like, how could you live this semi-free lifestyle kind of in your 20s and early 30s and stuff that allows you to experience that freedom. It's not total freedom, but then also be doing the same things that will set you up once you hit 40 to really kind of 100% control how you spend your time. And I don't know what all the answers are there yet, but
I guess so. What does time freedom look like to someone in their 40s versus in their 20s to 30s?
Right. So if I talk about my personal experience is the work that I do right now, I absolutely love it. Like, I don't even think of it as work. And so I'm glad to do it. I could probably do it for as long as until I get bored with it, but then hopefully I'll find something else. But at the same time, I don't want to do it year round. So I will take the time of the months off in the summer and kick back a little bit, but then also like think about what I want to do the next year. It's like there's a seasonal aspect to it. Now, again, it's still not perfect because one of the other things that we're trying to, I think it's just always this like slow, gradual increase of what you want to do. Because what we want to do is do like 3 months in Europe or spend autumn in New York. And we can't do that yet because we have the summer place in Wisconsin, which we really like. But then we have our child who has to go to school. You know, That's a thing you got to do.
Yes.
And we'll have to do that for the next 4 years because he's a freshman.
Okay.
But then eventually we can move and then do those other things. And so I'm also trying to start speaking so that I can get overseas speaking engagements, and then we can stay there for 2 months while we're there. So it's just like this, I think, and it comes back down to, you can have a true time freedom if you have the money to support it, fortunately or unfortunately. But yet I still think even when, like, I could have done things differently earlier in my life when I didn't have as much money that could allow me to still experience time freedom. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think there's also the responsibility, I guess, of your son. And so that's a huge aspect to it too. I'm just thinking, because it really does depend on what you go into, what industry you go into also, because some industries can yield themselves to being more seasonal than others.
True. Although what I try to do is say, if you are able to kind of start your own thing and have a lifestyle business, you can structure the work and kind of structure your team in such a way that you can make it seasonal, which is interesting. But I think, so where I kind of think too is, a lot of it comes down to like kiddos. And so you've got those people that can take their 3 kids and like live around the world and do all that kind of stuff, which is awesome. And
Same.
I'm like, no way.
Never.
I do that?
No.
Sounds awful.
I actually I wouldn't view that as time freedom.
No.
I
don't know what that would be, but it would not be freedom.
A living hell? No, I don't know.
Yeah. That would be like fight or flight at all times.
Exactly. And I mean, but it just comes down to choices though, and if you choose to do family and stay put in one spot, there's just different things that you can do that are time freedom. And that, I don't know if you've thought about that, but like because you have like, if your first child was in 2020, you have three kids surrender. Is that right? Wow.
I do.
And Kirby, how are yours are like what and what?
They're 7, 5, and 3.
Okay.
So
very
close.
So
cool.
Very similar. So, Kirby, do you think you have time freedom right now?
It depends on the day and if my husband's home.
Well, I'll tell you, when I had one child under 6, I did not have time freedom. That's okay.
Yeah.
I wanted it. I just didn't have it yet. So
I would say though, the like optionality that we've talked about several times is like being able to structure your day so that you can have that time with the kids. So, like random days, our kindergartner will have vowel parties. So it's only 5 a year, but it's like on a Friday afternoon. And so they make it a whole thing. And so like last week was a vowel party, for example. And so just not having to worry about, do I have time off or whatever to go do this? Like I can just say I'm taking the afternoon off and I can go be present with them. And so just more of being able to be, because it's always chaos with children, I think, for a majority of the time, just having that optionality and the control over your time and your calendar, especially.
And that comes from doing your own thing, like having your solo business or something like that. Is that what helps you, Ruby? Like how do you manage with the little ones?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I always kind of tell myself I can have everything, but not at the same time. And so I usually sort of choose a focus for the day. So like today is a book day. I'm working on my book and I'm going on this podcast. Anything else that's like self-care or kids is like bonus. Or like another day, like if it's a day that I'm going to the vowel party, would probably be like a family day where I'm focusing on that. Because before, when I was trying to cram a little bit of everything into every day, I felt like I was failing at everything. And so instead, I kind of now just choose a focus to each day for the most part. Or like today is a day that it's like a social day because I'm getting lunch with friends or whatever. So that's something that helps me. And then in terms of travel, I mean, my husband and I also shamelessly travel without our children, like all the time.
Good for you.
Oh, good for you.
So that I think is what we do. And I think it's kind of also our way to, I'm really passionate about the fact that you do not have to be with someone all the time in order to love them, like, because that would mean that when dad or mom's at work, they don't love you. Like that doesn't make sense to me, And so I'm like, in my family, I'm just normalizing like, yeah, we're going to go away this weekend. You're going to be with grandma, grandpa, and the babysitter. Love you. See you soon. Like, do you want me to bring you back a seashell from the beach? Like, okay. And like, they're pretty used to it. So I mean, yeah, my youngest is 2 months and a little bit. And I've probably already been away at least twice. Yeah. So that's definitely one way that we're sort of compromising with the fact that we have under 18s in our household is just like we have to live our life too, you know?
I think that's great. I think that's wonderful.
And I agree with Kirby. Sorry, I just wanted to throw in that I do feel like there are
Yeah.
some times where you are, as a mom or a parent, time broke, right? Like 6:30 a.m. to 8:30 a.m. every single day, I have zero time freedom because I'm like getting the kids up and feeding the baby, blah, blah, blah. And that's fine. And, we might have a babysitter to do bedtime some nights, but for the most part, 6 to 8 p.m. also, like I'm completely time broke and making the most of the time that I do have, like if like the two older kids are in school and not feeling guilty for that, although again, easier said than done sometimes. And then also not feeling resentful when you are time broke and kind of just accepting what's there and working with it, I think is like a good first step.
I think accepting that it's a season
Yeah.
too. Like it's
Mhm.
not gonna always
Yeah.
be that way.
I love the focus on the type of day. I think that's really brilliant.
Thank you.
So speaking of a book day,
Mhm.
please tell us a little bit about your book, about the journey. Anything you want to share there? I love talking books.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, my book is How to Stop Scrolling, and it helps people to kind of redesign their life a little bit in a way that is going to promote the phone use that they want. My core message is that anyone can change their relationship with their phone, but it takes intention and reflection and setting boundaries with the virtual world. And my book rests on three pillars. So I talk about design over willpower. So when you're thinking willpower, like one example I could give you is if you're meeting a friend for lunch, you could meet them at the bakery and then have to resist the chocolate croissant, or you could meet them at like the superfood place and just like get a smoothie that's delicious and not even worry about the croissant, So that's an example of design over willpower. So I think that there's not enough design when it comes to our phones, and we're all just focusing on willpower and then kicking ourselves over and over and over again. So design over willpower is one of my pillars. Being kind to yourself is one of the pillars. So just thinking about your behavior without shame, without guilt, but again thinking, okay, how can I do better next time? How will I design things? So these components are all related, and then the third
Hmm.
component is to fill the vacuum. So once you remove scrolling from your life, what do you want to add instead? And I think that that is a challenging question, which makes people shy away from diminishing their phone use in the first place, because it's a scary question to answer, because you're basically asking, what do you want to do with your life, instead of scroll. So those are sort of the three pillars that my book rests on, and it's currently scheduled to be published on March 30th, so I'm almost there.
Wow.
Yeah.
I really like those pillars. I can't think of the right word, but like they give you some grace. In other words,
They're compassionate.
that's not,
Mhm.
they're compassionate. There you go. Thank you. That's really great. I was just thinking like, and I'm thinking of this from the perspective of my 14-year-old son,
Mhm.
who all he wants to do is be on the phone. I was thinking like, if I were to fill the void, what did I used to do when
Right.
I was 14? My mom didn't even let us have a video game console.
Mhm.
So I don't know maybe I went outside and like played tennis or something like
Probably
that.
still did at 14, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that's great. How is the reception going? Like, what are you doing for marketing? These are questions that I ask because
Those
I'm
are great questions.
embarking on
What
my
am
own
I doing for marketing? Yeah, I kind of need to get
with
there.
three
So
children.
I'm handing my manuscript off today. It was supposed to be 2 days ago, and then I emailed her and I was like, actually, so I've already done one pass through with my developmental editor. Next is going to the copy editor. And marketing, I mean, I'm going on podcasts and
Hmm.
I'll need to figure it out. Yeah, I have a newsletter and we'll see. Yeah, that's definitely kind of the next step for me, is
The
figuring all
one
that
thing
out.
that I've, yeah, the one thing that I've been, so I asked this of a lot of people, and obviously the goal is to try to get pre-sales to get good momentum,
Hmm.
heading in through the launch. The thing that I had always kind of not thought too much about, but I'm trying to figure more things out about is bulk sales. You
Mm.
know, just to knock out 100 or 500 books at one time, like I don't know, what organization or something like that would want a book like yours that could like get it out to a bunch of people all at once. Anyway, I read something like this even a long time ago. about, again, it's 80-20. How could you spend 80% of your effort on like these 20% that are really going to knock it out of the park? I don't know. It'll be a fun thought experiment to figure out who those people might be.
Yeah, I do wonder about like college students, like in terms of bulk sales. I've wondered about speaking at colleges, people that are going into the workforce. I think that a lot of people reach for my book if they are coming into more responsibility. So whether that means a promotion or a new child, when your time becomes more valuable and others are relying on you, the scrolling has a higher stake. So I do think new parents also, they're like, wait, why am I on my phone when my 3-year-old's talking to me? You're suddenly really noticing your behavior in a different way than you were before, but we'll see.
Well, that's great. You obviously know your reader very well, which
I
is
hope so.
a good lesson from AJ.
Yeah. I think the
That's excellent.
parents is a huge one. I mean, going back to like Brian's example of going on the train of everyone being on their phone. How many times do you go to dinner and you see everyone on their phone? Or how many times do you see, a family at dinner and the kids are on phones or whatever? Our kids have tablets. And like one thing though that we have done is at dinner, no devices like at all. And so from that 6 to 8 p.m., it's free. And I think one thing that was for me personally was I didn't realize how much you miss out like until I went on maternity leave with my third and I was completely blocked from our banking system. And so then that's when you really started noticing like behaviors and patterns and things like that. And so I think as a new parent, especially, that's huge.
Great. Yeah.
That is a good target too, because I think I can remember being a new parent and feeling especially guilty when I'm like, oh, wait, what am I doing on my phone when I have this little kid running around? Like, this is the worst. I need pillar number 2 to give myself some grace.
Yeah.
One of the things that I discuss in the book is, again, it's kind of a first step before figuring out like how to get time freedom is like what you want the time freedom for. And what's involved in that is this idea of, one of many types of ways of doing lifestyle design. And I found in talking to people, even on this podcast, that some people like to think ahead like 10 years, go, where am I going to be? And some people are like, based on my previous experience, there's nothing that I could have ever thought that would give me any idea about what I'm doing 10 years from now. And so I kind of just take it, year by year. What kind of person are you? Have you thought about that? Or
Yeah, I probably take it year by year more so than 10 because I want to do something big every year. Like I feel like I need there to be something. Like I want to be working towards something. So like this year I published a book. Last year I had a baby. Like there's got to be something every year basically. But if I'm thinking about the next 10 years, I do want to focus on the kids. They're 5, 2, and 0 now. So, it's cliche to say, but you never get the years back. And so I know I'll keep writing, but I'll also have the rest of my life to write. Whereas they won't be living under my roof forever. And I do feel like we've just been hustling and reflecting and thinking like, where do we want to live? What do we want to do? And all those things for the past few years. And so now that we've reached a conclusion for some of these questions, like these answers might change, but for now we've kind of figured things out a little bit. I do want to just slow down a little bit and enjoy what we've actually worked towards. So that's probably one of my goals really is almost just to pull back and to have less goals almost and to just enjoy what we have and what we're doing and not always thinking forward and pushing ahead. Because I think that's like a human instinct and it's not always what we need.
I think that's great. I always thought that I would have, these 18 years. It's actually more like 12 come to learn because by the time they get, at least my son, I'm sure all kids are different, but my son really wants to hang out with his friends.
Yeah.
He doesn't really want to have anything to do with me.
I believe that. I felt like the same when I was a kid, when I was a teenager. How about you two?
Yeah, absolutely.
I was kind of a lame kid. I don't know. I just, again, like, what? I'm supposed to hang out with my parents? Okay, I'll hang out with my parents. That really kind of is my through line.
I think for me, it was a lot of like, once I got into high school, then it was sports. And every season we had a sport thing. And then, during the summers, for a while, until I was actually a freshman, we would go to my grandparents' house. And so then I wouldn't see my parents all summer. And so, like, having that, and then I'm also one of 7 kids.
Wow.
So,
wow, that's crazy.
A lot of time splitting.
Where are you in the birth order?
I'm second to the baby. So,
Second
a lot
to
of older
baby.
siblings, a lot of going to their games and, but my sisters, we have a split family. My sisters live with their dad, and so they were, like, more into livestock showing and stuff like that, so traveling a lot. But my brothers all played baseball, football, and so it was kind of a year-round thing going to their things, and then by the time I was old enough, then, I was like everyone was going a different way.
So, before we close, I wanted to ask about one of the blogs that you posted recently around finding new adult friends friends as an adult. Just tell me about that experience because I'm going through it with my wife now, at, 20 years later than you, but it's been interesting. I'm kind of curious. Like, I think you wrote about people you met on New Year's, and then you were going to go out again.
Exactly.
How's the relationship?
It's good. Maybe I'll text them after this podcast. They'll probably think I'm so creepy because I after I wrote the blog post, I did send it to them and I was like, "Hey, I thought of you guys," and they were like, "Great." And then if I'm also like, also talked about you on a podcast, they're gonna be like, "This woman is crazy. We can't be friends with her."
Yeah, you should keep that on the down low.
But yeah, we met at a New Year's Eve party of one of the person's parents. It was their party, so we met the kids. We already knew that we were already friends with the parents. Andrew and I are friends with a lot of people that are older than us. And I really enjoy friendships with people that are 20, 30, 40, 50 years older. But anyway, we met the son and his partner, and we really hit it off, and we were talking for like a couple hours at the party. So I was like, there's this great bar that I've been meaning to check out. It was like a pop-up bar, and they were like, we're down to go. We've been to the one in Mexico City. So I was like, perfect. I'm going to make us a res. I'm doing it now. Friday night's good. And then afterwards, I was telling Andrew, I was like, I wonder if they like just kind of felt like they had to, say yes, because I'm like inviting them on the spot or like drinking champagne because it's New Year's Eve, blah, blah, blah. And then when it came to be the time to go out, we were like, like, I don't know, like, is it gonna, were we wearing like champagne colored glasses? Is it really gonna be fun? And then we went and we had a blast. And, I feel,
cool.
I always think about how crazy it is that there might be people that are going to be your best friends that you haven't even met yet, And so I think thinking in that way always keeps me really open because there are so many interesting people to meet and so many interesting conversations to be had. And so staying on the couch, although it's the easier choice, it is restricting me from those possibilities. Going back to the kind of, you could live so many lives in one. You can just live one life and you could just stay at home on your couch and scroll on your phone. But then there are so many great people to be met. So that's what kind of gets me out there. Yeah.
Yeah, the couple that we're befriending, they happen to live only just 2 blocks away from us, which is great
even
too. Because
better,
we could like just walk
over. Yeah.
We watched The Roof Man on Friday night with them. Have you seen that movie?
No, I haven't.
It's pretty funny.
Okay.
It's funny. It's good. It's Channing Tatum. He's in there.
Okay, great.
Check it out.
I'll jot it down.
The movie that you put in your blog,
that was hilarious. Yeah.
Yeah. What's it called again? Do you remember?
Nope, I can't remember.
It's where they go to China to.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
It was funny.
It was really funny.
Like, I like comedy.
Me too. I haven't yet watched. I just read Bullet Train. Have you watched that one yet with like Brad Pitt? It's like assassins on a train.
No.
I just read the book this week, so I think I'll watch the movie. But yeah,
I'll check it out.
I'm always disappointed when I read a book and then they make a movie because movies never finish the book.
Yeah, fair.
Well, I'll watch that movie without having read the book, and I'll tell you what I think of it. We'll compare notes.
I think it's a little violent because it's assassins, but it's in like a funny way, I think. It took me a while to get the tone of the book because it was so like grotesque and weird, but then I realized that the author wasn't being like too serious. It was interesting.
That's awesome. Well, Ruby, thank you so much for joining us on the Time Freedom Podcast. It's been fun to talk, all things time freedom, all things about your book. Please tell our listeners where to get your book, where to, connect with you, please.
Sure. Yeah. So if you go to howtostopscrolling.com, that's where you can subscribe to my newsletter, The Scroll Shift. Every Wednesday, I send out a short email with some actionable advice. And you can also get updates on my book there at howtostopscrolling.com. And then also my website, rubyrybawrites.com. I tend to be very literal. How to Stop Scrolling and Ruby Ryba Writes. That's where you can find my blog posts. So check me out.
Well, great. Yes, definitely. And we'll put those links in the episode notes.
Thanks, Kirby.
So thank you. Thank you again for coming, and let's stay connected.
Yeah, definitely.
What a great conversation we had with Ruby. She had a lot of good takeaways, actually. I loved hearing her perspective on the focus on the type of day. We've talked previously about like batching your work or scheduling in batches and things like that. And so I think that having just a day focus sometimes may take the pressure off of, if I'm going to work on this in the morning and I'm going to work on this in the afternoon, then you're not trying to switch gears maybe so many times too. Obviously, schedule depending. And the other thing that I really liked were her 3 pillars for her book. So design your
Me too.
willpower, be kind to yourself, and then fill the vacuum. And I think that it goes even beyond like the scrolling. Like if you think about your days, kind of going back to the focus on the day. And one of the things I like to do is a calendar audit with my clients. And so seeing where they're leaking things, or like maybe they pick up their phone and they scroll for 5 minutes, like what task are they avoiding? And what's going to actually push the needle forward. So, maybe they get off their phone and they do one LinkedIn connection or something that's going to move their business forward rather than just filling with busy work. So I think it fits right in with building your lifestyle business perfectly.
I loved the pillars of her book as well. I guess I didn't realize that going into the conversation. Sometimes you think, oh, stop scrolling. It's going to be a very like practical book. I feel like it gets at the underlying issues with scrolling, and that's impressive, and I think will help a lot more people. The one part that really stuck with me is a couple times she referred to it is feeling when she was younger, a sort of like negative feeling around the fact that she could only live one life. I'm like, wow, talk about deeply philosophical. I don't know if it's the generation or if it's just her, but that was really impressive to me. And I can't say that I've ever thought like sad about the fact that I could only live one life, but I do know that I've been very late to realizing that I need to pack in a lot of different and varied and interesting things. And I think that was pretty cool that she knows that already at 20 years younger than I am, which is great.
Yes, yeah, I never looked at it that way either. Like, I mean, I feel like I'm much older than I really am sometimes. Go and you do your one thing, and so just having that brought to awareness, I guess, is good.
So, yeah, another great episode of the Time Freedom Podcast. Please like and subscribe, do all of those wonderful things. And don't forget that if you go out to timefreedombook.com, you can click through to get my book. And if you order my book, one copy, and you put in the special code podcast, you will get the free audiobook sent to you immediately. So you don't have to wait until September to get the actual book. Thank you so much. And we will see you next week. Take care.
See you next week.